ya.
Hey, y'all.
I want you to just put her into a downstay. Same deal, hang out for a second, make sure she's nice and stable. And then whenever you think she is, you can release her again. Beautiful. All right, why don't you come to a stop? Okay, and why don't you go ahead and unclip the leash and hand it to me. All right, so here's what I want you to do next. Next, we're gonna enforce a little bit of off-leash walking, and we're gonna do it exactly as if she were on the leash.
Okay.
Right? So why don't you take your remote, bump it just a couple levels up higher here. So I always go a little bit higher than what I normally would when I'm doing off-leash stuff as just a precaution. So,
Okay.
And then why don't you tell her down real quick?
Down.
Because we're gonna have a little parade of dogs here walking by. I wanna make sure that she holds this. So we'll give them a second, we'll just let them go a little ways up, and then, like I said, we're gonna enforce a little bit of off-leash walking. So just pretend the leash is on, right? And sometimes I like practicing the off-leash walking in places where obviously there's not a ton of distractions and stuff around, because it helps you see the mistakes a little better. Sometimes we get really hung up on the leash and using it constantly and seeing it as this barrier. So I wanna make sure she's gonna walk just as well without that leash on. So why don't you go ahead and in a minute here, you're gonna tell her come and then just start walking and let's see what we get.
Hi guys, it's Bridget with Miracle Canine Training, and I am joined today by the fabulous Daxter. And Daxter and his brother came into our board and train program to work on some feeding issues, as their feeding routine led to them kind of getting into scuffles after mealtime, even if the food was gone. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to immediately start with Dax about some structure with feeding and going over how you can implement this with your dog as well. When we're starting to introduce some structure around the feeding, my goal is the dog does not go for the bowl until they're released. Our release word is okay. So when I go to set the bowl down, if he goes for it, I'm gonna mark with no and give a small little leash pop and bring the food back up. This combination of things lets him know that he went for it too early, and then the food goes away. So we're gonna see what kind of progress we can make with that in the next several moments. No. And I want him fully not moving toward the food and waiting. So just like that, bowl on the floor does not mean that they're necessarily released to go eat it. And I have him on leash just to kind of keep him a little bit more subdued here. Hi, bud. When I'm ready for him to eat and he's kind of focused, he's no longer actively going for the food, I can say, bring it back up one more time. Put it down, pause for a moment. Okay, slide it toward him. And you can see right now he's like, am I allowed to eat? And that can happen in the process as we are starting to set rules around feeding. And this is not a dog that resource guards around people, so in this step I'm using a little bit of encouragement to help him eat. And while he's eating, I'm just going to stand right here and monitor him. I'm not going to walk away or get too distracted with another task. And we're just going to let him finish his meal. And when the food is gone, I do not want to let that bowl linger around because there can be a perception of mealtime. Sometimes after the food is gone, the dogs can still be in the drive to eat, the hunting stage. So I want to take that bowl up and we're going to put it away. And then mealtime is done. There's nothing left to resource guard. There's nothing left to get weird about. We're going to be doing the same thing with his brother Jack, so stick around for that. All right, same thing here with Jack, is I'm going to put the food down. If he goes for it before I release, I'm just going to be giving a light leash guidance and bringing the food back up so he gets the message again that there are some boundaries with the food and it's my food until I release him to it. No. 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 And until he is able just to pause for one moment. Okay. And slide the food toward him, and then again allowing him to eat. So setting that structure with the food is so essential, and I suggest this for dogs of any caliber. They do not have to be resource guarders, because I think it adds some structure to feeding time and ultimately has your dog pause before they go for that food, which can have them look at you rather than getting so excited and having that initial impulse to gobble down their food. So that's generally how we would handle it. And as time goes on, we will be feeding them together and working through how we would feed two dogs together that have had issues in the past.
Well, so topic being nervous dogs in high stimulated situations. Being at Crocker is always a very high stimulated place. I guess what's the point?
I think a lot of good exposure.
Yeah.
And like Maya here is just very genetically anxious. Her mom, one of the primary reasons she came to training is just her anxiety, and so little could set it off. She told me like her hair dryer was setting it off, so she was very noise phobic.
Yeah.
And had a hard time adjusting into new environments. So we could look at spending the rest of her life avoiding things that may be scary, but inevitably she's going to have to be in a scary situation.
Yeah.
Whether it's like somebody does something loud all of a sudden, or a car backfires and we can't have her fleeing.
Yep.
So it's good to do sessions like this because they can take in the environment without feeling so nervous and scared by it. And we've worked extensively on just like starting to do a lot of this stuff, whether at Home Depot, here at Crocker Park, in the facility, out of the facility, and just start to get her more comfortable being outside.
And I think that's kind of going into kind of what we did last time, like in the coffee shop, you know, it was much quieter, much slower stimulation. We're inside a building too, so you don't have all those outside exposures of the cars, the birds and the squirrels and stuff, other dogs even included. So like for Rocky, it's something where he's very observant. You know, he's kind of looking all over the place all the time. He's holding the downstate great, but even just that kind of taking all of that exposure in, I feel like is so good for him because he's still really young and not so much on the nervous side as like
Yeah.
Maya is, but very much still
over aroused by everything
Yes.
in his environment.
And whereas before, and you know, he's a big dude, even being as young as he is, and so it's something that when he gets stimulated or reactive and pulls at something, whether it's a dog or a squirrel or just being scared of a car and running away from it, you know, that
Yeah.
can be very dangerous. So getting him this exposure, having him here today has been really good in terms of just kind of allowing that stimulation to kind of
To exist
work
in the
itself.
background of his life.
Yep, and him not having that necessary impulse of just right away reacting and going towards it or away from it, you know.
Yeah.
So I think this is like, we're basically in the center of Crocker Park, having all these people go around. We've already seen 4 or 5 dogs walk by, you know. It's been really, really good for him.
Yeah. And like, although Maya presents as a little bit nervous in these situations, I think these are the situations that have make her better.
Oh,
and
yeah.
make her more tolerable of being outside and in public.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know, like, her owner doesn't. She said she really is just focused on her not being like fleeing and running
Yep.
off, and she's had a history of taking off and running around the neighborhood when she does get scared.
Mm-hmm.
So just being in a public space to allow her the ability to adjust to
Yeah.
some of this, I think, is so healthy.
And
she's
it's
gotten so much better.
right, and it's something where it's like we're not expecting perfection. We have them both here today in the sense that the expectation of we are going to need to work through something
Yeah.
still. You know, like this is not like, hey, look at our dogs, look at how perfect they are. This is very much like
This
even
is
as
still
we're
in
talking,
training.
yes, even as we're talking, we are still working on things, and I'm not expecting perfection
No.
by any means for him. To the point of, you know, I'm sure we're going to have to correct a couple times with just walking around and kind of that exposure of wanting to react and the impulse control. But that's the point of this, is that the expectation shouldn't be, well, wait till they're perfect, because unless you work through this stuff expecting to work or to train on it, you know, you're not going to get perfect with it, you know. So
Even something like that guy walking by, like
Right.
last week when we were working in the facility, and you came into the gated area where she was doing her downstay, she was so affected by your presence.
Yeah.
Probably just due to, like, she had a little fearfulness of men,
mm-hmm.
and she was just incapable of listening at that stage because she was so concerned with you.
Right.
Versus I want her to be not so concerned with everybody and know that I've got her back and I'm not going to let anybody approach her.
Right.
And it's just such a healthy mindset to allow her to realize, like, I can just relax.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, a lot of times I think it's a lot to do with like the confidence of walking by. You know, like that guy didn't pay attention like at all. You know, he was smooth, he just walked right on. And a lot of times that confidence, I feel like, can be very intimidating to a lot of dogs, and or is to him, you know, excitable. You know, so he sees someone kind of walking by. They're not walking to him, but they're walking by him,
Yeah.
and he thinks everyone's here for him. You know, so of course he wants to get up and he wants to investigate. He wants to go say hi and stuff, but it's not necessarily what he needs to be doing. You know, repeating ourselves, bringing it back up, but the biggest difference of working at a place like Home Depot to at a place like this, you know, Home Depot is, my perspective, really good with working like more the walking around, more the kind of quick interactions of people coming out of the aisles, and certain noises with it, like the forklifts and the carts and stuff. But being outside in a natural situation where like not every owner is going to be taking their dog up to Home Depot, you know, all the time and stuff, but they are going to be walking it out in public and everything, you know. So I think that these are when that crucial part of the training really comes into play, that they already have an understanding of the commands. Clearly he's doing really well, but
There's a baseline that they can follow easily.
Yeah.
And it's like dogs like Maya, their nervous systems are dysregulated, so they're nervous about everything, and that's just the way genetically she's made up.
Yep.
So taking a dog like that into newer situations, of course, we're going to see a little bit of nerves, we're going to see a little bit of fearfulness, but that doesn't mean that we're doing something wrong. It means that we're trying to better her to be able to do things like this without it being so like hard for her. And I want her to be able to blend in.
It is still a very controlled situation, right? You know, like as much as I said, like we do see all the dogs going by and the people and the cars and all these things, it's still nothing where we are putting them in a situation of danger or anyone else for that matter. You know, it's something that we have kind of removed ourselves to set up for that success in terms of, you know, being able to watch them, you know, and allowing them to have that success, I think, is key. And even something like that, right? With like, whether it be the stroller, the girl shaking the ice in the cup, you know, it's something that we can't pinpoint exactly what the trigger, you know, is, but to have that success is why we're here, you know.
We can't curate a perfect world where there's never going to be any scary sounds or something that the dog perceives as nerve-wracking or scary.
Right.
And doing things like being around unpredictable, you know, we can't predict any of these people's behavior, but we can do our due diligence to have our dogs under control and being in this environment, be able to communicate with people if they do try to approach.
It's our responsibility as, you know, the trainers and the owner's responsibility as owners to take control of their dog. What they can control, they should be doing, you know. Whereas, again, like you were saying, like, you can't control people coming up, you know, necessarily, you know, their intentions on coming up. But it's something that I can make sure that my dog is at least in a solid position where that if I need to kind of interact with someone else, that I can do so appropriately and not have to worry about the dog kind of cutting us off or interacting in some way. Just sitting here has been good.
Situations like for humans are overstimulating. Like you see, there's a lot of traffic. There's people walking all around. Naturally, you kind of just want to look everywhere and look at everything. Dogs are like that too.
Yep.
But they just don't have the same, like, especially genetically nervous dogs. Like they don't know what real danger is versus like what's not.
Yep.
And their emotional state is everything's dangerous, everything's scary.
Right. Consider everything a threat. Yeah.
Yes. And no dog should have to live like that.
No.
And the more you allow them to react like that and hide them away or lock them in your apartment or your house and avoid things, walk at 3 a.m., you're never really working them through anything.
Exactly. And, you know, we as humans, you know, there are things that we have to force ourselves out of our comfort zone for the exact same reason of just exposure. Doesn't mean we're putting ourselves in a dangerous situation, but it's definitely an uncomfortable situation. But as long as we're doing it in terms of to benefit ourselves, that is the important part of pushing yourself out of the comfort zone. I think he got up just from plain boredom.
Yeah,
but
he was like, I'm actually done right now.
Right.
But I think, like, part of the training process, like, is going to be, it's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies, and people are always so against their dogs ever being nervous, but you're never going to avoid that, even if we work strictly with, like, positive reinforcement and never did anything to let her know. She's still going to be anxious and probably 10 times worse.
Yes. Yeah. But it's something that, again, and, you know, when, you know, you get the shakiness and everything, you know, there's a lot of contributing factors, but it's something that the real point is making sure that you're still benefiting her, you know. Down.
I think it comforts her to work with another dog, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I don't know if that's just myself manipulating that or what, but I do think that there's a lot of times, you know, that the copycat kind of, or like pack mentality kind of situation where it's just like, all right, if they can do it, I can do it kind of thing, you know?
I think, like, why I have sometimes a lot of success with foster dogs is, like, they have other dogs around them, my pack, and they're like, these guys ain't nervous.
Right.
So we're here with Maya, and Maya came in for some extreme anxiety issues, and she had her stints of running away from home due to just being nervous and fleeing. So we're here today in Crocker Park, which is a pretty busy shopping center, and we're getting her some exposure. So prior to this, we've already really worked on her walk and her positioning and expectation. So as she's kind of taking in the environment, she's still expected to be in position, and we're guiding her. As you can see, she's a little stimulated as she's looking around. But one of her mom's main goals was just helping her walk better because she was a very strong puller and was kind of always, her mom said, hunting. So small animals, rodents, squirrels. She was very fixated on those things. And her mom said that the walk with her was a miserable experience. So we're making her walk not a miserable experience and getting her some good exposure to outside sounds, sights, smells, people, while still enjoying our walk with her.
Did you guys just move here?
Yeah, like it was like a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys like it on this side of town?
Yeah. Off? Or, well, no. Bad.
There we go. All right, so what's going on?
So
Fill me in.
She has just kind of been like weird with people.
Yeah.
Which was never an issue before. She was always great with people. Issue
Sure.
with dogs. We addressed the dog thing and like the crazy walking and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, now it's like kind of how she like growled at you a little bit when you walked in.
Mm-hmm.
She'll do that as like new people come. She's fine with like our family, our friends that she's known for years.
Mm-hmm.
But anyone new that comes over, she's like very weird with them, and we'll follow the rules where she's on her bed until like things calm down.
Mm-hmm.
She's actually really calm right now. Usually she's going nuts when like people come in.
She still would be generally?
Yeah, she'd usually, tail would still be going and she'd still be pushing the limits past
Yeah, yeah.
the edge of the bed.
Yeah, like at
Would you
first-
generally, so right there when you gave her that correction, obviously, I guess I kind of pointed that out and then you corrected for it. Is that something you would have let slide generally?
No, we usually make her stay
Yeah.
on there because we're just
Meaning like when you actually corrected her for breaking it though?
Yeah.
Like, because she kind of just like one paw, like
Yeah.
half came off of it. Is that something you would have right away corrected for, or would you have like let that paw kind of sliding off slide?
probably let it slide.
Okay.
And then when she's like really coming off of
Yep.
it, we'll correct it. and
Okay, I
put
gotcha.
her back on it.
Reason why I asked that is because obviously that was the point. You corrected for that, right? And then she settled down, right? So sometimes, at least in this part of the stage of things, raising that criteria even higher and not even letting those little details slide goes a really long way.
Okay.
But anyways, go ahead,
Yeah.
continue.
So then we'll let her off and she'll be fine. So
Yeah.
we kind of read her. If she's okay with the people,
Mm-hmm.
we'll let her off to say hi after she calms down. If she's iffy,
Mm-hmm.
we lately have honestly just been putting her like upstairs or
Sure.
out of the way. So if she's stressed at all, we don't even want to put her in a situation.
Yeah.
But there's times where she'll be excited and fine,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll let her off, and she'll just she'll go up to the people,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll pet her. She approaches them, and then she'll start barking at them and going crazy, which is scary when it's
Sure.
her. So, and it's kind of like when she's triggered, it's hard to get her to stop. Like we'll correct her and stuff and try to get her out of the situation. And then the rest of the time, she's just not okay with that person.
And when you say not okay, what is she doing at that point?
Like kind of like looking at them, like
Just kind of being weird.
yeah, being weird, looking at them and like growling under her breath a little bit.
Yep.
And that, to me, like that just makes me nervous.
Sure.
I don't know
Yeah,
if
yeah.
she's gonna go after them or what. So
Yep, I got you. And is that kind of the extent of what you've seen, is the barking and stuff and
Yeah.
things like that?
yeah, and then there are times we've been trying to do it where we'll introduce her outside so she has more space to move around. And then we'll just notice she'll just kind of be, it's a lot of times with guys, she'll be like just walking around kind of weird, like looking at
Sure.
them funny. And the second we see that, we kind of just put her away, which I don't know if that's helping or hurting.
Yeah. I don't know if it's necessarily hurting, but it's definitely not helping.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, there's a couple of pieces to the puzzle that I'm just kind of hearing and dissecting as you're talking. And again, as I start kind of outlining this, let me know if anything that I'm saying is incorrect. First and foremost, obviously, little details, right? Corrections for stuff like that. We want to be super, super on top of those little things. Additionally, what level did you correct her at right there?
It was at 50.
Okay. So she obviously stopped when you corrected her, but it didn't really seem like she cared a whole lot necessarily about the actual correction, right? So any of these types of things at this point, the intensity of the correction, you have to see when you give a correction, she really cares about it, right? Especially pertaining to these types of things, right? There's a big difference between interrupting a behavior versus actually inhibiting a behavior, right? Interrupting it being kind of what we saw right there, which was you corrected and she said, okay, fine, I won't do this, right? Versus inhibiting it of like, oh, I tried this, whoa, I definitely don't want to try that again. You know what I mean? So that's...
Which for her has to be at basically like 100.
Yeah, and that's honestly a lot of dogs. You know, I tell people all the time, like my personal dogs, they're on, like she obviously has the mini educator on. E-Collar Technology sells another collar called the Boss, which is like, it's like a 40% power increase like from this one. And my 2 dogs are fairly sensitive, I would say. But the other 2, like my Malinois and then my wife's Pity, they work 70 plus on the Boss, like for everything. It's just, you know. And the thing is, like, I rarely ever need to actually correct them because when they get corrected, right? And it's very, very clear. Definitely shouldn't do that. Definitely don't want that to happen again. And then we're good with it for the next 5 months or whatever it is. Yeah. Okay, so that's just the bed side of things. Yeah. That's setting you up for success, right? All of those details leading up to actually introducing her to people are arguably the most important because if we're setting the tone right off the rip of the criteria we're holding you to is going to be nice and tight, right? And the consequences for not doing it are going to be very motivating. Once we go to release her off, she should be less likely to actually want to display any sort of aggression or anything like that. We should have kind of nipped it in the butt before we release her off. Then we get to the releasing her off side of things. So a couple times you said, you know, introducing her to people, right? Now, again, this is me reading between the lines here, but a lot of times when people tell me, you know, we go outside to introduce her to the people or we try to introduce her to the people inside, what that kind of looks like is, okay, she's on her bed. We tell her, okay, we're going to let her off now, and it's with the sole intention of we're going to let her off so she could go over to the person and they could say hi to her and, you know, there's this like formal introduction. Is that right? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, when she's coming off the bed, she's basically going to say hi.
And
Whether like she doesn't know them yet to meet them, or it's someone she remembers and she's excited to see them again.
And generally speaking, when you go to release her off, and if she does go to approach the person, is that person generally going to try to interact with her also?
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. There are some people who are like, not sure, and they just kind of let her smell them, and that's it. But most of the time they do.
Okay. That's the next part of the equation is usually what we do is we do this in 3 stages, right? So stage number 1 is the coexistence stage, what we're doing right now, getting her to a place where it's like, all right, somebody's here, whatever, doesn't impact me, right? This is your expectation right now, nice and firm with the criteria with it. Stage number 2 is her being free to investigate, but without any interaction.
So when we release her, just tell her.
Just go ahead and just tell her, okay, let her off.
Right now?
Yeah, go ahead and let her off.
Well, okay.
And you can kind of encourage her off if you want to.
Willow, come.
There we go. And then she's free now. She can do whatever she wants to do at this point. You know, obviously she's a little apprehensive and stuff. So here's the thing. In this point, if when we go to release her off, let's say she's like, I don't know what these people are up to. Let me go check them out. She goes over and sniffs, and she's kind of apprehensive, right? Let me check these people out. Is she generally allowed on the furniture?
She's allowed on her blanket.
Okay, gotcha. So let's say hypothetically she came up to me, right, and she was apprehensive. She's like, I don't know who this person is. I'm a little nervous still right now. And she comes over to me to investigate and just let me check this out. And I go, woo, right? That is automatically going to be like, holy shit, this person is really scary. I don't like it, which is going to cause the reactions that you're used to seeing, right? So probably if you go through the stages of bed stay till she's chill, like we saw right there. Release her off with the instruction to the guest of even if it's somebody she likes, somebody she doesn't like, just for the first like 10 minutes, just ignore her. She sniffs you, whatever, you know, you don't have to like be a statue or anything, obviously, right? But don't like don't be staring her down. Don't be like, oh, you know, bombarding her with like the interaction and the petting and stuff like that. Just let her just get comfortable for a minute, you know? A lot of times then she'll organically get comfortable on her own. Then you move to the third stage of things, which is the actual interaction. Once we've had a chance to do this for a minute, where she's kind of just hanging out, all's good, whatever, she's gotten comfortable with the fact that we're in the house, we would start the petting, and then I'll show you how we would handle that in a minute. But a lot of times when we're seeing weird, quirky issues in the house, where again, I don't even know if I would call it aggression, because to me aggression is like intent to do harm. Like she's actively trying to bite people and stuff.
Yeah.
She's just fearful right
it's
now.
It's more of her just like giving the warning.
Of course, she's uncomfortable.
And
yeah.
But it's scary coming
of course.
from her.
I 100% understand.
If it's a little, like, we go to other people's house and they're little, like, shitty chihuahua, like my mom's dogs.
Sure. Yeah, it's like you kind of expect it.
And it's like,
yeah.
okay, that's basically kind of what Willow's
yeah.
doing. But
just she's bigger.
It's Willow.
Yeah.
It's like frightening.
Yeah. No, I 100% understand. So, where's I going with that? Yeah, so a lot of times, though, if you just spend a little bit of time letting her be free without the pressure of people, like, petting her and interacting with her and stuff like that, you'll see her get past this much faster, you know?
Okay. Just like in general?
Just in general. Yeah, right? So like I said, we're going to let her hang out for a minute. Obviously, she's, like, falling asleep over there right now, and that could be because, whatever, it's late, she's tired, or it could be just the stress of, like, wow, somebody's here right now. This is exhausting. I'm just going to go put myself somewhere else, right? And sometimes we'll see that too, is like, let's say I was a totally new person. This was a real life situation. You released her off. She came over and sniffed me for a minute and she was like, I'm uncomfortable. If that person doesn't bombard her with like petting and stuff in that moment and freak her out even more, a lot of times they'll investigate for a minute and then they'll just go do something else. You know, it's like, all right, well, I'm just going to go lay in the dining room over there or put myself on my spot.
Like, be ideal.
Exactly. Gotta give her the chance to, you know, check it out for a minute. Okay, I don't know about this. Let me go somewhere else and do something else, right? So let's do this. Just to see how she does before we go to do any petting, we're just gonna, you and I are just gonna kind of walk through the kitchen and stuff here, and I just want to see as we move around if she does anything. Obviously, you see she's kind of looking.
Yeah, like she seems, this is like
sure.
the unsureness that I see. And
yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, should we get her out of the situation?
No, because she's never going to, you know, improve from it unless she gets to experience this. We just have to make sure that we're letting her experience it without putting any unnecessary pressure on her. Because she is uncomfortable. She's like, oh, I don't know, there's somebody over there, this, that. So if I were to try to interact with her right now, it would just stress her out more. Yeah. So we need to get her comfortable with just this.
Like there was a time a new neighbor was over and he was totally ignoring her, but she was acting funny and I just kind of took her out. Like she was kind of acting like this, tail between her leg, like looking up at him. So in that situation, just kind of let her go, but just leave her be. Make sure they kind of just.
She hasn't done anything wrong. Yeah. You know what I mean? She's uncomfortable with it, but we could make it a bigger deal sometimes by like we notice she's uncomfortable and then we actually put her away by like reassuring her that like, wow, like something is kind of wrong right now. We need to get you out of here, you know? Instead of, hey, people are walking around the house. It's literally not a big deal, you know? Now, let's say this were happening, right? We're hanging out and you see she's starting to kind of air sniff a little bit and stuff. So you'll see it organically as we ignore her. She'll get a little more curious as things go along. But even then, it's even more important not to be like, oh, you're here, let me pet you, you know? So for right now, at least with the guests that you trust, right, or friends that are coming over that you trust, or a neighbor or something like that, just leave the dog alone, right? If she comes up to you, let her sniff you, it's no big deal, but just don't pet her, right? Let her get comfortable just coexisting again here, you know? But yeah, then obviously we would move to the interaction stage, which is after we've had that kind of, you know, a little bit of time to let her get some kind of the sniffs out of her system and stuff like that. And she seems like she's no longer super concerned or anything. We could try petting then if we want to, with the rule of we got to call the dog over, right? If she comes over, great. If she doesn't come over, she says, hey, I'm uncomfortable right now, we just leave her alone, right? So I'll try that. Willow, come here. Willow, come on. Willow, hello. And obviously, like, I could keep forcing this and trying to get her to me, but clearly she's telling me, look, she's going back to her spot. She's clearly telling me, I'm uncomfortable right now. I don't want you to pet me. And that's okay. Yeah. It's not a problem. She didn't do anything wrong. Yeah. You know, this is the first time we're doing this in the house, obviously, as a training session like this. Okay. So by allowing her to realize, like, let's take that moment right there. I tried to get her over to me. She was like, maybe, no, backing out, right? And me saying, okay, that's cool. That reassures her that she has alternatives to reacting to make people go away, right? She could just go put herself somewhere else, and she doesn't need to put on that big display of to make that scary person go away. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, you know, some of this kind of stuff you're playing kind of the longer game with, you know, like you're not obviously going to get her totally comfortable with people like overnight with something like this, but at least knowing how to progress her is the important thing, because you'll see it will go rapidly. Like, let's say for the next, especially with the holidays coming up and stuff, you know, let's say for the next 2 months, every time somebody comes over, nobody even pays her any mind. You know, even if she seems like she's the happiest dog in the world, it's just whatever. Willow's just hanging out. You're going to see her comfort level and her confidence is just going to skyrocket. So when you go to start adding that interaction stage into things, it's going to be a cakewalk. Okay. You know, I think the mistake you guys are making is when you go to release her, immediately having the interactions happen. You know,
it's just, I mean, she's excited and goes
sure.
up to the people, so like,
don't misconstrue it as excitement. You know, it's arousal, obviously, right? But it's definitely like, I need to investigate this new thing. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not like, oh my God, I'm so happy you're here. It's why are you here? Let me check out why you're here right now, right? And if they become kind of a threat in that moment, that's just going to kind of freak her out even more. Yeah. What I was getting ready to say is, let's say in stage two being her just coexisting with nobody messing with her, right? When we go to release her off of the bed, let's say you're in that stage, people are totally ignoring her. She was over here sniffing and I just like moved this way or something and that set her off and she started barking. That I would then correct firmly for, right? And that would be, again, probably giving her probably all the way up on the e-collar correction for it. But generally speaking, if they're not like interacting with her and stuff, you're not going to see it escalate to that point. You know?
And then what's the expectation if it does happen and we correct her?
She could do anything she wants to do except that. Okay. Right? Because we're not correcting an obedience command. It has nothing to do with bed. It has nothing to do with down. It has nothing to do with anything like that. It simply has to do with don't freak out at that person. Okay. So that's it. Don't try to redirect her to a command or anything. We want to see her organically go and do something else.
And that's kind of what we'll try to be like, hey, we'll calm, bed,
sure.
like when she's in that situation. So she's probably thinking through like,
it can be a little confusing then, because it's like, what's the expectation? Did I just get corrected for not being on the bed, or did I get corrected for the reactivity? So by breaking it down of like we're working either a behavioral thing or an obedience thing, it helps be more clear about the expectation, you know?
She's so unsure right now.
Sure is. So what in the heck is going on?
I thought I liked this guy. Usually I see him when I'm playing with my friends.
Yeah, right. So here's what I'm going to do next. I'm just going to go sit on the couch and I want to see what she does. And again, I'm just ignoring her. So again, perfect response actually, right? Because she was uncomfortable. She said, I'm apprehensive. She said, I'm going to go somewhere else, right? Now she's over there. She's checking Paige out. Paige, point your camera down towards her and I want to see what she does. And again, if in that moment right there, Paige were to be like, oh, hi, friend, that would immediately spook her out even more, you know? Because obviously she's doing the weird thing, right? Her tail's all tucked, she's apprehensive and stuff. But we're just making sure we're not reinforcing those fears. Investigate, do what you want to do. She needs to feel like she's able to move away from things that make her uncomfortable. Like if I came and sat on this couch, I'm so happy that I saw her do that right there, because that shows she doesn't want to react.
Yeah, I know.
But when she's in places where she feels like she needs to, when people are taking away that alternative, that's where things get dicey. But a lot of times where this stuff gets really bad is like, let's say you started seeing it become a pattern. It's like she did it once or twice. It's like, oh, that's a little weird. Sometimes what we'll see is that people will then try to overcompensate and be like, oh, she's apprehensive with new people. Now we need to have more people interact with her to try to get her past this issue. You know what I mean? Yeah, and that just puts...
Kind of the opposite. We've been like scaling it back.
Sure. Or something like that. But we'll make some sort of big adjustment. Yeah. You know, whether trying to push the socialization more or isolate her more than at that point, which then reinforces and nurtures that fear and just makes it worse, you know?
So if there's a situation where, like, we know if we're having a ton of people over, like, we'll board her.
Sure.
That's just better not stressed,
Yep.
doesn't have to deal with it. But say we have like 8 people over where it's reasonable, and if she's like weird like this, do we just let her go, or does it ever make sense to like put her away?
Well, first thing I will say is, I don't know how often you have 8 people over your house, but that's a lot for me, right? So yes. So like with us, what we do with our dogs, and our dogs don't even have issues with people that come over. But like if we're going to be having more than a couple people over the house, and we're going to be busy doing something, or we're having some drinks on the patio, or whatever it may be, generally we just put the dogs away.
Okay, so that's okay.
But we do it proactively. I don't wait until there's a problem and then do it. I just do it before they ever even get there. That way we're not like reassuring any sort of fears.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's 100% okay to avoid certain problems it's not even that she couldn't handle it. Like she'd probably be fine in a lot of those situations if you followed those same principles. But sometimes like if there's actually 8 people over your house, it's gonna be a lot harder to micromanage 8 people and what they're doing than if you have like 2 friends over to watch a movie or something.
Yeah, like we were gonna host Friendsgiving, and I was like,
That might be a lot, yeah.
Yeah, so it's gonna be 8 people, and
Sure.
I was like, I don't know. I was like, let's wait till after David comes.
Yeah.
And we know we're handling it right.
Yeah, I think when it comes to socialization, we generally follow the principle of like less is more, So instead of worrying about doing it all the time with her, making sure every time we do it, it's done really well, So making sure it's always ending in a productive manner. Because like even this, again, I always say like people she's just lounging in there, obviously. She's minding her own business.
Yeah.
Totally fine, right? But a lot of people look at this and they get bummed. They're like, oh, she's scared, she's sad, she's anxious, we're not making any progress, whatever. But it's like she's doing exactly what we want her to do, which is if you're uncomfortable, just go somewhere else. Go do something else, You don't have to put yourself right in the middle of all of the chaos and stuff, right? Now, there's going to be times, again, people have to walk around the house. Let's do this. Why don't you lead the way, and we'll walk into the little office up here. And we're not going to pay her any mind, but like there's times where she puts herself somewhere else, and we might need to go into that area, obviously.
Yeah.
We'll just hang out here for a minute, and we'll see what she does. I like the little ball pit.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Emmy loves it.
Yeah?
Yeah. She has a slide too. We'll put the slide in and she'll
Oh, yeah.
slide into it. I'm glad you're seeing her weirdness.
But this is fine. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that I didn't believe you by any means.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is just understanding it and understanding, like you were saying, how to progress it. Because, again, even right there, did exactly what we wanted her to do. There's nothing wrong with that. The biggest thing is, like I said, you're moving too quick from, I break it into phases, right? Phase 1 to phase 3, right? And you're skipping phase 2, which is just once we release her, allowing her to move around the house freely without the pressure of people trying to interact with her.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we were just totally skipping phase 2. And so, like, if she was like this the entire time,
It's
her
fine.
friends left, I should feel good about this.
Hell yeah. I would feel like what we're seeing right now, I would feel great about it. I don't know where she went. We're not going to keep following her at this point. She's fine. You know what I mean? I would feel really, really, really good about this.
Okay. Okay.
And like I said, you'll
So
see it.
I feel like not good, but I'll have to switch that mindset.
Sure.
It's good to know.
What is it that makes you feel not good about it, though?
Just like 'cause she's acting weird. Like,
Well, what's, I mean,
yeah. Like you're saying, it seems like she's unhappy, but she's fine.
it's not even unhappy. She's unsure.
Yeah.
She says, there's a lot right now. I'm going to go do something else, But that's, again, given the circumstances, I always say, like, humans, dogs, like all that, we don't always live in this state of just loving everything, right? There's plenty of things I'm unsure about or get anxious about and stuff like that. The important skills for a dog or a person or whoever to know are when you're feeling anxious or you're feeling scared or you're feeling whatever, happy, what do you do with those emotions? You know what I mean? Like, how do you manage yourself with those emotions? And she's clearly showing, without unnecessary stress put on her, she's managing her emotions extremely well. So now it's just a matter of, like, we just have to make sure we're not giving her a reason. She's unsure about this situation. Let's make sure we don't give her a reason to be more unsure about this situation, right? Which, by just ignoring her, we're going to leave. And in her mind, the reason why she's acting weird is because she's like, I don't know what the heck is going to happen right now. Is this person going to make me do a bunch of stuff? Or is he going to try to poke at me and mess with me and stuff like that? And then we're going to leave and she's going to be like, oh, nothing happened, right? And then that happens again, right? And then in her mind, I don't know what's going to happen. They leave, oh, nothing happened. And then you build on that. And that's where she starts realizing you're going to see it go from being really weird to a little bit weird to neutral in no time.
Okay. So like with kids is like we just have to watch, keep close.
Yeah.
There's nothing like specific.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to say. Yeah, children, you just got to be very, very careful with it. You know, truthfully, it sounds like you guys have a lot of kids in the family and stuff. Do a lot of them like kind of come to the house and stuff? Or?
Yeah, there's a decent amount of kids around.
So I'll kind of give you like my philosophy on children as a non-child owning person, right? We have a handful of friends that have kids and a couple kids in the family and stuff like that. And I've always kind of lived by the philosophy of like, the risk is so much higher with children. You know what I mean? Yeah. Let's say she did her barking thing and like didn't even bite them, but like they got scratched because they moved their hand quickly past her mouth while she was barking or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's such a bigger deal with a child than it is with an adult, you know? Where when I weigh out the risk to reward of like, okay, 4 times a month she might be around children, maybe 4 times a month she's just in her crate or something like that, or on her bed the entire time or something along those lines.
Kind of when kids are around, I'm
yeah.
very, very cautious, especially like little ones who like you turn for 1 second,
yeah.
they could be on her bed with her. And
exactly, who knows? Right. And it's just like one of the, I personally don't see the point in worrying about that. Like it seems like she's obviously fine with your child, right?
She's great. She's
no issues there, obviously, which is fantastic. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised about that. Generally, like when they're a part of the family, they kind of know, you know?
She's better with Emmy than she is with us. Like, I don't understand.
That's good. That's good. But yeah, like when it comes to like other people's children, I don't even play around with that, you know? Okay. And you know, I would say like, I'm here to give my opinion and my take on things. And like, we have plenty of clients that are like, no, my dogs are around kids all the time. They have to be around them. And I'm like, all right, well, if you're going to do it, yes, very, very supervised, this and that. But if you have the ability to just kind of avoid those situations and it's not happening very frequently, that feels like a better alternative, you know?
So it's not like bad at
no.
times where we've just...
Again, less is more, right? Less is more. She's fine with the child she needs to be fine with, right? So like, does she need to be fine with your friends' kids? It's like, no, right? Like, does she need to be around?
Afraid of her anyways.
Yeah. So no, that's 100% okay.
And then the last thing, this has kind of always been an issue. When she gets injured, like the other night we were playing fetch with her in the basement, and like her paw must be dry or something, it started bleeding, and I went to go check it, and she like attacked me. So whenever she's injured, like we cannot go like near her.
In general, like if you need to like check her paws and things like that, is she fine with it?
Like she doesn't let us. That's why we always have you guys cut her nails.
Yeah.
She won't let us. But like she could be laying on the couch and I could just like play with her paw and she doesn't care.
She's fine
with it. But if something's wrong, and like she knows it. Like if you're looking at something and she knows something's wrong, she gets weird with you. So
getting back to a lot of times in the heat of the moment, we do things differently. A lot of times I find, and again, correct me if I'm wrong here, a lot of times I'll find, like, let's say that situation, we're playing ball with her, suddenly we notice the paw's bleeding, we're like, oh my God, like, your paw's bleeding, I gotta go check it out. And just not even thinking, we're just like, we go over and we go to grab the paw to go look at it, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying we shouldn't, you know, be able to do that, because we should, obviously, but if we're trying to get past an issue, we have to have a nice, clear routine in which we go about doing those things in order to set her up for success, right? So like nails, for example, right? We do her nails, and we have a routine of how we do her nails, which is why she's fine with it. She doesn't give us too hard of a time with it. It's not a big deal or anything. We're able to get it done, right? But it's because we do it in the same predictable manner every single time, right? If we have dogs that are weird with handling, like at the vet and stuff, like we do the same thing. We're like, all right, well, if we check the ears, we do it this way. If we check the paws, we do it this way. If we need to brush them, we do it this way. If we need to do a body exam, we do it this way, right? And we follow that regardless of the scenario we're in anytime we need to check those places until we build on enough success and build enough trust with the dog where the random situations like that aren't as big of a deal.
Say we were to have someone like come let her out, we really only let our family do it. But say we were in a bind and had a neighbor come,
That is a terrible idea.
never. Okay.
I would rather, with my personal dogs, right?
Yeah.
Let's say the bind is, it's going to be 15 hours till I can get home or something like that. You know what I mean? I would rather have either somebody I really know and trust that knows my dogs come and let them out before I have a random stranger come into my house and let my dogs out.
Okay, even if it's someone like that's been over and she's comfortable with, but like not like our family where she's
Yeah.
like 100% comfortable.
Yes.
Okay.
Because again, let's just play that scenario out. Do you crater when you're gone?
No.
Okay. The amount of, I mean, there was just a situation on the news, right? Like what, last year or whatever it was, of a dog, the dog walker situation. I think it happened in Texas, right? Dogs weren't crated. Dog walker came over the house a couple times that was going to be watching these pets, right? These are dogs that supposedly never had any issues before. And they came over to meet the dogs twice, I think. Everything was fine. Owners were present. Things were cool. Dog walker came to go let the dogs out when they weren't home in real life, and she was killed by the dogs.
Yikes. Okay. All right.
You know what I mean, though? Like, that's, like, dogs act different when you're there versus when you're not there. That's just the reality of the situation, and I never, ever would feel comfortable, especially, unless I had the floofiest little cupcake dog ever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would never in a million years trust anybody that didn't have a pretty good amount of dog knowledge coming and letting my dogs out.
Okay.
I don't even know if I would, because thinking about it, I don't even know if I would feel comfortable having like my mom just show up at my house and let my dogs out. You know what I mean? It's just like, just because we see worst case scenario all the time of this kind of stuff. And it's just like, anything can happen, you know? Anything can happen. And I just, risk to reward, like we talked about with the kids, it doesn't feel worth it to me.
Okay. Okay.
You know?
I mean, we usually just have they're
Yeah.
on the east side, so
Yeah.
I feel like it comes to it.
Sure.
Like when I went into labor, I was like,
Yeah.
Mom, sorry,
Sure.
you gotta go. I'm not having a neighbor.
Yeah, I understand. You know, but like any other type of situation, like worst case scenario, especially since it's actually better that you don't care, because like worst case scenario, you come home and like she had an accident on the floor. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's a better alternative to, you know, something else that could happen. So your homework assignment for the next week is when you have people come over, bed stay initially, more firm with the corrections. I would definitely get her that bungee collar next time you're at the shop, obviously. When you release her, nobody's allowed to interact with her for right now. Until you start seeing her act way less weird around new people, that's the rule.
Okay. So don't even go to 3 until
Nope.
we see. Okay.
Just hang out at 2 for a while.
Yeah, that's fine.
You know?
I'm good at 2.
Just
I'm good at 2.
chill at 2 for a while, and you're gonna find like it's just you're gonna notice a big change in her very rapidly by just existing at 2.
Okay.
You know?
What do you think caused her to?
Well, like I said, big changes. So you moved into this house a year ago,
Yeah.
right? You had a kid. How old is the baby?
19 months.
19 months. So you moved and had a child, 2 major life changes, all basically in 1 year.
Yeah.
You know? I'm sure with baby comes much more visitors in and out, right? And with baby comes probably maybe here or there a little loosening up of some rule. You know what I mean? It's an accumulation of a ton of really major life changes,
Okay.
and she just doesn't know how to handle it right now. So we need to just put a little
didn't break
attention.
her.
No, you didn't break her. I mean, this is normal. Like
Yeah.
people call us over this stuff all the time, you know. So I would say that is probably those are very clear things that could have caused this.